Yes, we are indeed at the Poetry. Thank you for stopping by. As ever, welcome to Casa Poetry News. Grab yourself a coffee and pull up a pew because we have poetic vitamins just for you. I'd love to welcome again Eddie, Squigs, and Arsene. How's everyone doing today? You good?
Aye, all good.
Coffee.
How have your weeks been? All good?
All good.
Fantastic. Well, we hope that you enjoy what we have on the show today, which we have busboys, we have desire and cultural appropriation. Not literally, but we start this week in India, specifically Third Lane magazine. Now, Third Lane is an online arts magazine based in India, started in March 2021, that publishes poetry, fiction, creative non-fiction, translation, reviews, comics, art and photography, both in Bengali and in English. They describe themselves as a bilingual literary initiative started by a bunch of armchair enthusiasts who decided one fine morning that it was time to get some skin in the game. They say your piece could be about anything: a hidden poem at the back of your notebook, a story about magic rabbits, a biting social commentary you've been meaning to pen down, or even a long rant to yourself that you came up with on your daily commute. Submissions are $3.99 and open all year round, but when you submit, you need to submit a minimum of 3 unpublished pieces. However, these can be across multiple categories as listed above. Of course, there are some rules about how to present your work, what to send, where to send it, and all that good stuff. But as usual, it's all in the T's and the C's. So if you've got some English or Bengali poems looking for a home, you might just find it at Third Lane, at thirdlanemag.com. And I would love to ask my wonderful heralds, how are you with submissions, particularly submissions outside your sort of dominating submission markets or writing poetry in other languages?
I technically write mostly in other languages, which is kind of something I'm trying to work on, not diminishing, or like I'm trying to work on writing in Arabic more than not more, like writing in Arabic more, period. But it is interesting to see anthologies in an English dominated world where English poetry mostly reaches people online or anywhere. It is interesting to see poetry in mother languages or yeah, it's really interesting. Like I just right here, I have this anthology, for example, for by Lebanese and Arab poets, and it's called "And We Chose Everything." 2 poems of mine are in there, and it does have like most poems are in English, but there are some that combine both English and Arabic, and there are some poems in Arabic as well as English. This is mine, by the way. So it is. I love this. I love the fact that there are websites and communities and organizations that are trying to make it better in a way. Try to encourage people to write in their mother tongue and in another language. That's interesting.
Well, as I previously in our previous discussions prior to the recording, you guys know that I'm super excited about this because I'm Bengali myself. My family's from Calcutta, and I think this is really cool. Personally, like in terms of submissions, I'm still kind of a wimp about them. I just put in my first submission ever for a journal like a couple weeks ago, so that's a thing that I need to work on overcoming as a poet to actually thrive. But I do think it's really cool that other publications exist like this, and I don't. This one sounds really cool and sounds very modernized, but I know that Bengali in general, Bengalis in general, I'm being very stereotypical here, but we have a lot of value towards literary works and arts like that. That's just like a part of our culture, and I do believe that a lot of that comes from credit from Rabindranath Tagore, who was a Bengali and a big poet in his time, and people still follow him kind of like following still, which is so I think this is cool that this exists. And if I ever have the guts, I would definitely submit, but I'm still working up that courage.
No, I mean submissions of any form is a beast, regardless of I guess languages and such. But this is a wonderful project. I'm actually looking at the website here, and there's some wonderful poems here, and it's I'm sorry, what is this language that this is Bengali? Oh,
Yeah, that's right. English and Bengali.
the script is beautiful. I can't read it, but it's obviously beautiful, and yeah, this is great. They do translations as well. Yeah, I mean English being like what it is, prevailing in other cultures, projects like this, magazines like this, which showcase community and specifically, hey, this is Bengali, the artwork. There's like so much here. There's art, there's galleries, and they also got podcasts. Sorry, yeah, no, it's a great magazine. Everyone check it out. The idea of like producing more magazines that are bilingual or multilingual is a great stepping stone to continuing to, I suppose, abolish the lines which divide us.
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? And then, to go back to what you were saying, Arsene, about the tradition of art and writing in Bengali, you can see that just by looking at the website. It's a beautiful website. It's, a lot of websites are fairly standard. You've got your links up top, and you've got your list of stuff kind of going down the page. But there's something very beautiful about this website, and credit to whoever designed it. And also, kind of as you were saying, Squigs, about it's great to see this, and it is. And this is also about representation, because I don't know how many Bengali speakers there are, but I know it's a lot. And it's great that there's an outlet for this. And just as a general thing with Poetry News, generally, this show generally, we can obviously find things in the languages that we speak, but obviously it's very hard to find things in the languages that you don't speak. So the more people know about submissions, perhaps in languages that we don't know about, we have the comments below, and we would love to hear it. Love to get the links. So thank you, everyone, for your thoughts on that. And so hopefully Third Lane Mag is for you. And we will be back right after this.
Hi, I'm the iceberg that sank the Titanic, Eddie, and I'm joining you from the north of Lebanon, Batun more specifically, and today I'm bringing you a workshop called Writing Desire Through Poetry, Await What the Stars Will Bring, and it takes place on Saturday, March 12th at 6 p.m. GMT. Here's what this workshop deals with. Desire is a core element of poetry and queerness. Without it, most of the time, poems either fall flat or lose their element of urgency. In this workshop, you will work with many different media and perspectives in order to infuse the concept of desire in your work. This workshop will be held by Claire Benzadon. She is a Slip Lip magazine poetry reader and a broad-sided press Instagram's editor. Her chapbook, Liminal Zenith, was published by Sure Vision Books. Check out the details to this workshop in the links down in the video below. And my fellow heralds, what do you think about the idea of desire in poetry?
So desire is a huge part of poetry, right? Like I think that especially, I think some of the greatest love poems that exist come out of desire, or maybe I'm blending the line between love and lust, but either way, some of the greatest pieces of work came from desire. So I really appreciate this workshop, honestly.
Yeah, actually, on that, desire and suffering, much good poetry has been written. Buddhism, desire, and ignorance lie as root of suffering. It's all part of the human narrative, really, and a workshop to accentuate our abilities to express that part is a wonderful concept. Boom.
Well, that's it. And it's like you could almost call suffering a sort of unrequited desire or a denied desire or something like that in many ways. And I wonder, I don't know if that's directly part of the workshop, but I think desire is such a primal and such a powerful thing that's very, very easy to feel, but also very, very hard to explain. I mean, you can't just write in a poem, I desire you. Well, I mean, you could, but the just ways to express it and build it and harness it, it's a very difficult thing because it's hard for us ourselves to quantify, or at least me. So this workshop sounds fantastic.
It is, and it is a series of several workshops which we will be covering in other episodes. Well, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else, we will be back right after this with Arsen.
Hello again, it is I, Arsen, back with you for another amazing open mic. Actually, I'm not going to focus on the open mic. I'm going to focus on the community because these amazing people have open mics pretty much every day on both Instagram and physically. They are based in Baltimore. Their names are Busboys and Poets, and I like to call them the IG Instagram virtual pioneers. Their Instagram will be listed below. Their events list and their website will also be listed below, www.busboysandpoets.com/events-list/. And they just have an exciting, first of all, the hosts are all varied and amazing, different types of slam poets or even just performing poets. They have all a variety of that, right? Then you have a variety of different platforms, right? And it all ties in with what Busboys and Poets is about. Busboys and Poets is a community where racial and cultural connections are consciously uplifted. It's a place to take a deliberate pause and feed your mind, body, and soul. A space for art, culture, and politics to internationally and intentionally collide. And they believe in creating a space where we can inspire social change and begin to transform our community and the world. So it only makes sense that they would be the virtual IG pioneers. And it only makes sense that they would have different hosts every day, giving you different types of open mics and platforms to express your work. So definitely, please go and check them out at busboysandpoets.com/events-list, or even at their Instagram, Busboys and Poets. All that information will be down below. And I would love to hear from my heralds what they think about this kind of platform for a creative space.
I love the consistency. I log on to Instagram, and then every week the busboys are popping up there. A lot of great, in that platform you get like poets from all around the world to participate. I myself have to throw down the gauntlet. I've yet to do so, but it's just great to have that, there to listen, to watch, to see that, we constantly need reminders that poetry is important. The human experience is important. Busboys and poetry do that.
They absolutely do, don't they? And it's like I'm just having a look at their website now, and they've got multiple events pretty much every day. This is just amazing, and some of the important subjects in some of these events. I'm just looking race, place, and structural racism, and as well as just things like Tuesday night open mic and just presenting really important topics. There's one here coming up about the truth about Howard County lynching and things like that. These incredibly important topics that, for me personally, this is something I go to listen, and I go to learn, and it's a platform for poets that aren't me to express themselves. But just this daily platform of multiple events to go to, and these amazing themes and this amazing coverage. It's magnificent, and it looks like there's so much else that they're doing as well. I see an option on their website of request an event and things like that. It's so open and so empowering and such an uplifting thing. This is absolutely something to get behind.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. First of all, every day, wow, the power that and the energy and the connections that one should have to have events every day. That's some power move right there. And the topics discussed and the highlight on racial issues and racial identity is important and necessary, especially in this day and age. So thank you, Arsene, for sharing. This is great.
Thank you guys so much, and I'm on board with all of you guys. You see, there's power in poetry and there's power in awareness, and you merge the two of them together and you get busboys and poets, right? You go on there, you can get awareness about things you were not aware about every single day. Then you can express yourself however you wish on their platforms every single day. So this right here, I want to personally apologize for not covering them earlier. They deserve all of the coverage, and I really encourage all of you to go out and empower yourself by getting involved in events and communities such as this one. Again, their information is down below. Please go ahead and check it out. And that is all I have for you this week. We will be back after the break with our lovely and dear Squigs.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Squigs once again for the Poetry News. Thank you for joining us. I do want to bring to the conversation an idea that's been, once again, in my head, as all things tend to be. The poetry, cultural appropriation in poetry. Is this, poetry as a creative exercise anyhow, and to take points and ideas, concepts from other cultures necessarily is I found is done in a way that represents a grace, like a positive, And I don't think I've come across any poems necessarily that shit talk another culture or anything, but it is there, it is present, Being out here in the West, we're somewhat, let's say, we're there's a lot of multiculturalism. Well, anywhere in the world, I suppose. Sorry, but I'm just saying, like out here when we speak in English and when we produce our poetry, we do take influences. What is poetry appropriation? A quick Google search from here we go, poetryfoundation.org. Appropriation, following the visual arts model, lifts text in its entirety, reframing it on a page of paper. There is very little intervention and editing. The intention begins and ends the lifting. So that by itself, the practice of itself is to speak of. But then here we go. From Wiki, a common example of cultural appropriation is the adoption and the iconography of another culture and using it for purposes that are unintended by the original culture or even offensive to that culture's mores. I'm going on with the definition of this is going to be my set. I just want to introduce a conversation in which we have defined points here, and maybe you've never noticed it, but yeah, there's a lot of poetry I'm sure out there that takes from other cultures' concepts, and in fact, I'll get to one eventually. To represent, to be entitled or appointed to act or speak for someone, especially in an official capacity. Poetry, especially when published, be considered an official capacity. One poem that comes to mind is, of course, well, not of course, but I shall present it to you, Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Kublai Khan, and which does begin with or a vision in a dream, a fragment. So consider that this is lifted from the mind, but mind in dreaming. So even in that, I suppose, presentation, it's quite loose, and it's definitely like here. I'll read the first stanza here. In Xanadu did Kublai Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alf, the sacred river, ran through caverns measureless to man, down to the sunless sea. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground, with walls and towers where girdled round, and there were gardens bright with sinuous rills, where blossomed many an incense-bearing tree, and here were forests ancient as the hills, and folding sunny spots of greenery. Beautiful piece and a beautiful presentation, possibly of a culture, not of the writers. But this is an example, I think, more so of how we can take strong word, other cultures as influences and even inspiration. And when you speak of them in poetry, I don't think it's despairing or in a way to talk down, but definitely to lift up another concept from the perspective of the writer. Cultural appropriation in poetry, representation in poetry. What do my heralds think? What do you guys think? Well, our viewers, but please, I will welcome back my heralds to speak on this.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think it's very important to be on the right side of the line between showing interest in something that's from another culture and appropriating it. And I know it's sometimes hard to know exactly where the line is, but if you think you're on the line, I'd step a bit back away from it just to make sure you're on the right side of it. The way I see it, it's a little bit like traveling in a sense. It's a bit like traveling, that thing we did before that thing happened in 2020. And but it's like, you'd go somewhere and you'd explore the local landmarks and the local history of the place, and you'd learn about the reasons behind traditions and things like that. And it would be a really interesting thing to do, and maybe you'd talk about it in the pub with your friends when you get back home and things like that. And I think in a similar way, learn, for example, learn about a haiku, write a haiku. It's great, but don't start dressing like a ninja or whatever. It's like, it's one is showing interest, the other one is going beyond. I think I can't remember which one it is, but there's one of the early James Bond films, and there's a bit towards the end of the film where I think he's out in Japan and some people make him more Japanese. And to watch this now, it's incredibly just cringeworthy and wrong. And why did anyone ever think that was right? I guess I'm rambling a bit, but I guess it goes back to the thing, write what you know, and you can learn and show an interest in things, but always remember to be authentic to yourself and write what you know. And if you do that, then you're unlikely to appropriate. I hope that makes some kind of sense.
No, it does make sense. I'm trying to think of examples ways in which someone would culturally appropriate through poetry. What makes something cultural appropriation? It's the use of another culture's traditions and ideals and tokens for another purpose, for the purpose in which it was not meant to be. For example, dressing up as a certain culture for Halloween, or this kind of stuff, or like looking like someone of a different ethnicity or of a different race when you're not part of that race. So I'm trying to think in poetry, how can someone use someone else's culture for something else? If you talked about a haiku, and I'm only focusing on, for example, that one part, which if you talked about haiku, you are using the haiku for its purpose. Or if you are describing, let's say you visited a place which is not your own culture, and you are describing it in poetry, or what you felt in poetry, is it cultural appropriation? And I would say cultural appropriation would start when someone, let's say, when someone starts talking about possibly the issues or the problems, or trying to sound as someone who is facing these issues while they're not, maybe someone who is white or maybe biracial but white passing, and trying maybe to talk about issues of African Americans or a minority group, not only to highlight them, but trying to sound as if they are affected, or some effect has come upon them because of that issue. This is where I think cultural appropriation will start to take place, when you start in poetry, when you start identifying yourself with things that are not part of your culture, making them yours. Maybe this is where the line is drawn, I believe. But writing about a different place or a different location, I mean, like Martin said, it's like traveling. You can go there and take a picture. You can go there and trying to experience the culture there without appropriating it, without making it your own or taking a part of it and using it for other purposes. This is feasible. This is doable, in my opinion. However, yeah, like using that as your own, or claiming it as your own, or claiming yourself to be affected by any culture directly, that's where I think the line should be drawn in poetry specifically. I'm talking about poetry all the way here. What do you think, Arsen?
Well, I have a couple things. Specifically, Indian culture and Hinduism in itself being appropriated, how it has been through yoga, through chakras, and all that. I think there's a thin line between an ode to a culture and being way too much. And when you're way too much, you're appropriating the culture. So yeah, this is specifically for, I want to say, the transformational poets. If you don't know what a chakra is, please don't use it in your poetry. I'm so tired of erotic poets using the Kama Sutra as the symbol of sex, when without knowing the entire history of the Kama Sutra, and how the sex part is only a section of the whole lifestyle and purity and glorification of life that the Kama Sutra tries to illustrate. So I would, and I know that the Kama Sutra is known for its positions. We have them, we love them, okay? It's all in there. But that's not all it's about, you know? So as a person who personally sees my culture getting appropriated every time someone orders a chai tea latte, by the way, chai and tea mean the same thing, and latte also. I just want you guys in general to take some awareness and read a couple bits and pieces about things before you go out and use terms that you think make you seem a certain way. Okay, because you are perfect the way you are, and you don't have to try so hard, because we know you are perfect. All right, so that's my. I can go on and on forever, but this is only an hour-long show, and I don't want to take up all the time. Okay, so I'm gonna stop now.
No, thank you very much, my heralds, for your opinions. And I suppose when it does come down to it, it's not appropriation in the sense of respect. You know, being aware, educating yourself, and that, you know, so you can produce it or promote it in presentation as still quite a topic. You know, just be more aware. Let's put it that way. There's no crime in that. Just be more aware. Not to imply that there is such, but I would love to hear from our viewers instances where they do find such examples in poetry, and yeah, well, let's open up the conversation to this. And as the world is, you know, especially online, blurring the borders, where we get to be exposed and learn from each other. Ultimately, that's what it's about. Let's learn from each other. Thank you again. This is my time on the Poetry News. Thank you, my heralds. Please comment. Let's open up a discussion to this. We'll be right back after this with particulars, and farewell. So thank you, everyone, for joining us.
So before you go, Remember, we have some bloopers at the end. But also, before that, we would love to know what you've thought about everything we've covered today, about cultural appropriation in poetry, about the Busboys and Poets group. Have you been? What do you think about writing desire in poetry? We want to know what you think. It's great to hear from you. It's as much about what we receive as what we give. So please do let us know. And also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you know as soon as our videos come out. And Eddie has the details of all of our socials and more ways to keep in touch.
Yes, you can check us out on Instagram and TikTok at the PGN Official, and check us out on Facebook at the Poetry Global Network. And if you want anything, if you want to tell us anything, you want us to cover an open mic for you, you want us to cover a workshop, just send us an email at the Poetry Global Network at gmail.com. Please comment down below everything you want. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, the bell next to it so you can be informed when we post. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Share our videos, and we'll see you all next week.
Great ending.
Ooh, I look bad. Eddie, what the